Okay, so I need to finish up my electric fan conversion thing so I can continue getting epoxy all over myself. The electric fan has worked out really well. I won't talk too long, and I'm just going to tell you I'm happy that I did it. It worked out pretty good. I did a bunch of electrical work, and I showed how I tapped into the daytime running lights. This is a 2000 4runner US Federal edition, and if you've tried to do retrofit headlights with halos, my ideal situation would be to have the halos be the daytime running lights and not have the actual HID on inside the headlight. But that's difficult to do because of the complexity of the daytime running light circuit. So what I did actually worked out almost, and I'll show you. I didn't test all the connections, so I must have a problem, but I'm going to show you what happens with the tap that I use on the yellow wire in the video that's coming up. So you can see that the halo works on this side, and it doesn't work on this side. So the fuse box modification that I did works. I don't know if there's not enough amperage to get this one to turn on. I'll have to get in there and do some testing. But all in all, the video that hopefully you're going to watch for the rest of the way will show you how to get one halo to work, one not to, and how to modify the stock fuse box and electric fan. So, cool! Alright, I promised I would put together a video about this crazy electric fan conversion from a mechanical clutch. So I'm going to start from the beginning and kind of piece this together. I'm going to cover a lot of details, so they'll probably be kind of boring. This might get a little long, but there's a bunch of wiring and stuff. And I am also going to show you how I'm going to use, there's a couple of spare fuses in here, and I'm going to use those, and I'm going to show you how to tap into and use up. There's I think there's one down here, there's a couple down here. So whatever one's going to be easiest, I'll show you how I did that as well. So I'm going to start with probably the easy stuff. These guys I ended up having to space off with actually 4 washers each, because the mechanical fan clutch is actually kind of thick, and these studs don't have threads all the way down. I could have probably sourced some new studs that had deeper threads in them, but so I ended up having to put 4 M8, I think, yeah, M8 washers in there, and that spaced this guy out. So we're all ready to go. The radiator is in the bottom, are just capped off right now because previous video I actually routed some new transmission cooler lines, so radiator is now separate from that. I did also I'm just going to do prep work first. So the only place I have to really mount, I have a fan controller, is actually up where the reservoir overflow guy is, just for future reference for anybody who's wanting to do this. You can't just drill. I just drilled out where the where the spot welds were in that. So this is the bracket that was welded on, just spot welded on. You do have to take the light out, but those two guys are here. So, and they're not, of course, they weren't real careful about it, so they're not real lined up or anything. What else? Oh, I did also weld some captive M8 125 nuts in here so I could mount the radiator on them. Because the Champion radiator has some mounting issues, it says direct fit, of course it's not even really close. So I fixed that. A little bit of a pain. I would have probably liked to take on some aluminum thread guys down, that's probably really hard to see, down in here, however, so this way I have to actually bolt from the inside. It's kind of a pain, but so be it. Here is the fan shroud that I'm using. This does have dual, let me set this down. This does have dual spall fans on it. So I just, basically there's 2 wires, right, a ground and a, let me back up. There's a ground and a hot for both of these fans. Each of these fans draws 24 amps. So then I connected those guys right here with one of those fancy pants Deutsch connector things or something. These are nice connectors. And I rented the stupid tool or whatever, and they do work really nice. And they actually are sturdy, and you can disconnect them and reconnect them several times before they're going to break, which is a bonus. So there's that kind of deal. So what else? So sensor stuff. So this is what the unmolested lower radiator hose looks like. And this is one that you can see basically it's the same shape and size. I bought a brand new one. Cut this section out. This is a nice little aluminum, whatever you call them, basically a place to put your sensor in the ground anytime you have fluid flow going through a metallic isolated component. You're definitely going to get some electrons that are going to excite up, and you don't want a static charge. I guess it would be considered a static charge. So then I don't have the connector on this guy yet, but I'll have to ground this guy to chassis. This guy just has 2 wires. Once again, I wanted all the electrical to be disconnectable in a factory type fashion. This is another one of those fancy pants Deutsch connectors, douchey connectors. I don't know what they're called. So I went with an Auto Cool Guys no buzz guy. It's a pretty high end fan controller, but there's no relays involved in it, so hopefully, and it ramps up based on temperature and all that. I'm getting to be the bracket master, so I came up with a little bracket. Bad paint job though. That I just went and bought some channel and a couple little flat bars, and so this guy is actually going to bolt into. You can see they're off center. Into that location where I drilled out the reservoir for the overflow reservoir for the radiator, and I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do about that. So those are kind of the basic components that are involved, and I will get. I still need to finish. This is the sensor connector. I gotta finish up that wiring harness, and I'll show you the finished wiring harness, and then we'll run the other wires, and I'll show you how to do that. There was something else I probably should talk about. When I remember, I'll come back and shoot another little piece of the part. Okay, installment 2. So let's kind of walk around here. The fan shroud is then mounted, and it's kind of hard for me to get a spot. There's not a ton of room in here, but there is some. So let's look down here. So this is where that fan shroud plug comes out, and this is the fan controller mounted up on his little bracket down in here. And so the 2 grounds, I believe, yeah, there's 2 grounds. Steady, focus. It's not gonna be able to focus. So there's the 2 grounds, one for each fan goes here, a ground for the system, chassis ground goes there, and then there's I'm gonna pull this off. It's only held on by 1 bolt. There's a bunch of connections, not a bunch. There's 4 connections that really need to be made. If you want to make an AC connection, there is one too. I'm not gonna hook up my AC, but at this point, so this first, not super happy about the sensor guy, but so here's that plug down there, and the sensor guy needs a little bit of room to get to the guy. There's where the 2 grounds come up, and there's where it hooks to the battery. So then this guy I need to trim him off, but until I get it exactly done, I won't. So now, what am I gonna say? Oh, so now I'm gonna pull the battery out and add a fuse in to this guy, and then I'll try to walk you through the important parts if you can do that. I'm not gonna go into super tons of depth, but let me get it ready and prepped up, and then I'm gonna do another wiring harness, and I'll show you how to add one of those spares in there, and we'll do it again. All right, I promised I'd show this. I've done this on junkyard trucks. I haven't done it on this one, but I'm gonna point out. So I've pulled out some relays to make it easy to get. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 relays I pulled out. So there's just a little, there's 4 tabs in this guy. There's one here, right there. There's one, yeah, you don't have, I'll just point to where they're at. They can find them. There's one right here, one right there, and there's one over here someplace, right here. So this is your hot going in, right, from the battery. And so the only thing that's really connected on here is the wiring harness back here. And there actually is, up underneath this, you'll see once we get it out of there, there's a wire that's connected via some zip ties underneath there. So let me see. So it really helps to have, number one, a little pick to pull at these things, and it also helps to have some kind of something or other to grab on and yank up, because this whole entire assembly comes out of, it's just like a little bucket that this sits into. So why don't you give me a little room and let me see if I can get it coming up without breaking it. So I'm going to start on the back. I'm going to grab onto this piece right here. I think. And get a good hold on it. And then I'm going to pull this little tabby back. See if I can get them started. See if this guy needs to come with me. Been in here for 20 years, so it's probably, here, can you back up just a little bit? I need a little bit of room, thanks. Okay. Just doesn't want to come up. There we go, we got a little movement. There we go. So the back part came out. This part right here, it's kind of hard. I probably should pull this guy off, because this is another really good place to grab onto it. But right here is another good place to grab onto it as well. You're not gonna be able to get in here and see. It's okay. There we go. Once you get it coming up, it seems like if you're a little bit careful with those tabs. So there we go, that's loose. Hold on, let me get someplace else. So then this entire assembly, it's gonna fight you a little bit. But this entire wiring, this entire fuse boxy thing should come right up. Well, this guy's not sliding with us. Why is that? Okay, it's been in there for 20 years. All right, I'm gonna remedy that though. I'm gonna take this main lug off. You can stop and then we'll come back in a second. Okay, we're back. We just took this 10 off. I don't know why this whole assembly should slide up too, but it's really like almost kind of melted in here. So I'm gonna take the main lug off. And then, as you can see, once you take that off, we can get to the part that we really need to get to, and this is actually going to be fairly easy. So I'm gonna tap into. There's a couple of spares up here. Hold on, let me grab some of my other parts. We'll show you where I'm gonna show you where I got these as well. There was a guy on T4R, 4runner Leon, I think, who actually showed. So this guy, right, moves in. This guy is your main battery in, and there's this piece of metal comes down here, and this right here is like a main bus bar that runs through this entire fuse box. So if you look, this looks a lot like that. And this is the special end that you're going to be after. Special. It's very special. I'll put a link in the video description. You can get these brand new. However, it's a heck of a lot easier just to go pull one of these out of a wrecked one in the junkyard. because then you're going to also have to source a piece of wire with that same connection on it for the business end, or the load side of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this guy, who's from our main bus bar, down to one of these blanks on the inside, and these connectors can only go in one way. And then we're going to run this guy on the outside, and this is going to be our load, and then we'll we'll splice this guy on the end together to run our extra circuit. I also am gonna take this guy right here, is the high beam, like left front, I think, I don't remember, but right now I have been using a Tapa fuse guy up on top, plugged in up here, and then he kind of runs out, and he's been rubbing on the edge of the fuse box, and he's gonna rub through eventually. So I knew I needed to do this anyways, and I'm gonna be brave, and I'm gonna actually splice into probably, I think, this wire right here, and then I'll run this out, and this just trips my relay so I can run my big super PIA 5 mile away, blind everybody, cool lights. So that's what we're gonna do. So we'll come back and show you, we're gonna do that work, and we'll come back and we'll show you what that looks like when it's done. All right, we're back. This has been a lot of fun. I'm going to show you what I did, or what I decided to do. I went a little further than I had originally anticipated, but I figured I'd fix some stuff that I had messed up. So this right here is the daytime running lights, 7.5 ampere. This is the one that's permanent in the truck. So instead of cutting it, I just depinned it, and from my junkyard wiring harness, I went and got this guy out of there, and this guy is going to run, because I have whatever retrofit headlights with halos and HIDs in them. So this now is going to run my HID, or my my halo. It's been a long day. I then spliced into I don't remember, it's the left high beam. And since I don't really have the old school headlights anymore, these things are just triggers for relays anyways. So I tripped into that guy, and so now this guy trips off my PIA relay for my super high beams. And then this guy was the one who I originally, no, this guy right here was the one I originally was going to add, and I did add. And this is just basically just a battery, a fused battery link for the fan controller that I went with. One thing to note, if you decide to, and I need to get a 7.5 amp fuse, I have a huge box of them someplace, but I have no idea where they are and I can't find them. I have like hundreds of them. So I don't think it's too big of a deal for right now. There's a little white piece underneath these guys, and if you're gonna run your own, you're gonna pull, if you're gonna depin these guys, I'll put some tape on this before I tuck it away here, but just make sure it doesn't arc on anything. I don't think it would, but just to be safe, I'll put some tape around it. You got to take the little white pieces up, just like a lot of the other Toyota electrical connectors. Once you pull the little white guys, they're kind of weird. They come up fairly easily. Then you can depin and repin with these guys. So the only place, like I said, I'll put a link in there. The only place I know is the junkyard. I had a parts truck and I salvaged the entire fuse box and everything. So I'm gonna put this guy back together. This is how the fan controller, it'll mount back up here where it was. There's the two grounds. There's a ground for this guy, and then these guys are the ones. So this one is battery, red is ignition, or in my case it's only ACC, and then another ground. And then the only thing that's kind of unwieldy that I really don't like is these stupid sensor wires. They're taped up in this wire harness, but up here they got a little loose, and that's just, there's just two two sensor wires, and it doesn't really matter which one they go, which place they go. So I'm all ready to go. I'm gonna put her back together, and I'm really far out on a branch on this one. Some of this stuff, I don't know if it's gonna, I'm hoping that it's gonna work. It should just work, but I should have probably tested more before I pulled the battery out. I was too lazy to put it back in and test some stuff. So I think it's all gonna work. I'm gonna get it all put back together, and we're gonna get her started up. The engine will probably be a little bit loud, so I'm gonna kind of speak up. I just got back from about an hour drive, just trying to kind of test stuff, make sure it works. I've only had about 3 hours behind the wheel, but so far, with the transmission cooler out on the freeway, it runs at about probably about 170, 175. When you slow down, of course, and do some stop and go, it stays at about 180, and the coolant stays between 195 and 200 or so, no matter what. So ambient is about 81 out, so it's doing a pretty good job. Let's take a look. So everything's together. The fans don't run real hard. It's not, I mean, they're not noisy. I'll turn it off and we'll time it until then you get an idea of what it sounds like without the engine. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but it gives you an idea of how hard the fans are working. They're not really pulling hardly at all. And there they're turning off. You get the timer. So after an hour, I mean, the controller's a little bit warm, but you know, it's no warmer really than any piece of metal. Nowhere close. This stuff is red hot. This stuff is lava. So with the controller stuffed down in here, you'll notice that I do not have an overflow, or actually I do have an overflow. The only place that the overflow goes is here and down onto the ground. With the controller in place over here, the only place I can think to put a bottle is the only place really left in the engine would be either here, underneath here, or in this space right here. So I'll have to figure out what I'm gonna do for an overflow. I did grab a whew, that thing's hot. That's hot. I did grab a like one of those little aluminum Speedway, you know, or whatever, Summit Racing bottles, and it does fit in both places. So it's kind of the last piece, but I'm gonna call it success for now. Excuse me. So electric fan conversion, success. Now just, I guess, time will tell how reliable it is. Hopefully it won't strand me someplace. It's, you know, I used all high quality components, and it's probably overly beefy. Doesn't seem to really work hardly at all. The truck does warm up a lot faster. The transmission comes up to temperature a lot faster. So it's behaving like I hoped it would, and so far I'm real happy with it. So